Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole, in for Sarah Tymon, Zara Sala. Very grateful to have you here, Zara. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are talking about rates declining slightly, Operation Shadow Fed, which is very interesting. We're going to get in that shortly here. The SEPTA shutdown is coming to a head, and Philadelphia is getting a WNBA franchise. All very exciting stuff. So if you get some value out of this or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and if you want to schedule a call with our team, you can do that with the link in the comments. So Zara, let's lead off with what's been going on this week. We saw mortgage rates come down to their lowest levels of the year. We're seeing quotes at 6.67%, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association and Mortgage News Daily. We're seeing some people are quoting like 6.9. I mean, we're seeing some movement in terms of mortgage rates. How is this impacting the conversations you're having with consumers right now? Are they excited about this? Do they even know about it? What are you telling folks, especially as we head into the 4th of July holiday?
Going on appointments now, it's something that I can kind of use to get buyers that are kind of on the fence, more so looking at houses again, just being like, hey, look at the major difference, that you're looking to save.
Well, that's pretty exciting when you think about that. You're seeing that on your end. So we didn't plan on talking about this, but, you're in a spot where you're buying a home right now. Were rates something that weighed on you when you were in the purchase process? Like how did that factor into your decision?
Oh yeah, it factored, completely. With my current home, I went back and forth with negotiating for over a week just because of my monthly payment and trying to get it for what I wanted it for. So, luckily I was able to do a first time home buyer program. So my interest rate is a lot lower, but it impacted how much money I saved. I wanted to save a certain amount down just to help accommodate for my higher interest rate that I was looking at. So it definitely led to me waiting longer, honestly.
Well, and I think that's what these elevated rates have done, is that it's taken people out of the market. So, looking at the rates have certainly stabilized and ticked down. I think the question is, how long is this going to last, right? So if you look at some of the expert predictions, and that's what they are, there's lender data tracked by Optimal Blue shows that the 30-year fix is down 25 basis points since May 21st. And 38 basis points since the high of 2025, which registered on January 14th. And they're trending down across all lenders. Lawrence Yun, the chief economist for NAR, said there's an improved prospect of tariff negotiations. I'm clear a lot of people were nervous about what that would have done to rates. And it may have had the opposite impact a lot of people thought. There's the likelihood of a Fed cut in September or possibly sooner after the meeting, because there was the increased optimism around that after two voting members publicly stated their support for a July rate cut, and actual inflation is calmer than forecasted. So, you look at the economic agenda that's out there, it's very clear, like this stuff takes time for it to actually work. And now that people are seeing these things work, I'm pretty optimistic, not only about the end of this year, but also what's going to happen in 2026. It seems like the market's loosening up a little bit and people are okay making these large decisions. Some of your long-term clients, you're working, we talked about this earlier today. Are they seeing the optimism? Have you even gotten into the conversations with them? What's your analysis there based on what Lawrence Yun said about this barometer for rates long-term?
Yeah. So, a bunch of my clients I've been working with for a very long time. And so some of them, when I first started looking with them, it was like the interest rates were at 8% or, in the 7s. So this definitely drastically helps, their monthly payment that they're looking for. So like I said, I think it just brings more optimism back into the marketplace and, more buyers.
Yeah. And I think what you got to be careful of right now is if you're one of these people that have been waiting for rates to come down, right? Well, there's probably imagine. So, there's never like this ideal time to jump into the market. So, if I'm a consumer right now, what I'm looking at is rates are coming down. This might be the beginning of something here. It's really about, am I finding the home I can be in long term?
Yeah.
And that's 5+ years. Can I afford the payment? And is this home going to work for me? So how are you coaching people through this? Because everyone tries to time the market. We know you can't do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to their motivation. If some of my clients, live in a home where they have, say, a 2 to 3% interest rate, which is a unicorn rate at this point,
Hmm.
and they're not really super, they're very selective. They're going to take a while longer. So we were talking about this, but putting them in the back burner, focusing on clients that, I have a lease that ends in a couple of months. I don't want to renew my lease. I don't want to keep spending money that I'm not
Hmm.
getting back in return. So just really picking the clients I feel like have the most motivation where, yeah, obviously trying to get them the best rate and the monthly payment in mind, but they're going to purchase regardless.
How do you determine that motivation?
Yeah, I mean, just asking all the right questions, honestly. I mean, we always talk about this, but
Hmm.
is it the 70s?
It could be 8 if you
There's
count
multiple
dogs.
Ds.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's different Ds of real estate. So there's, say, divorce, if someone's getting a divorce, or diapers, they're having a child, or downsizing, things like that. So just realizing what is their main motive that they're looking for, and just kind of taking it from there.
I agree, and I think that's good advice for agents. For consumers, I think you got to look at it. Does a move make sense for you? I mean,
Yeah.
because when people are worried about the economy, they're going to transact in spite of that. And knowing where we are in the calendar right now, today's July 1st, so we got a holiday coming up the end of this week, pretty major holiday. If you're around and available, this might be an opportunity for
Yeah.
you to go find something while the rest of the market is sleeping. I'd be looking at, hey, rates have come down a little bit. Banks are going to be closed Friday, right? So if you know what rates are end of day Thursday,
Mhm.
well, you got 3 days to lock that in before they may go up or something could happen. So I think that's pretty important news to be aware of. And if you're seeing a home, and like we always have these clients, I went through this where you're like watching a home.
Yeah.
It's on the market. You're seeing what's happening with it. That to me is the best opportunity out there for consumers right now is when you're watching that home, days on market's accumulating, it's not moving. That may be where you can get a home that you want at a price that you want. And the seller may be more open to negotiating than you think. So I wouldn't be
Yeah.
sleeping on these elevated days on market properties. Have you had any success with that with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I have clients that are like, I don't want a bidding war. I don't want to compete with this many people. I'm like, okay, like let's target houses that have been sitting because those ones are more negotiable. Like if you want inspections, those are the houses that you're most likely to get it. If you want a lower price or seller's credit. So definitely targeting the days on market. And I feel like this week coming up is perfect to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's going to be a select few that are going to purchase during this weekend. So
It always happens.
yeah, so there's gonna be a lot less competition, so these houses are gonna sit a little bit longer.
Well, and that's where having someone that can guide you through the process is going to be really valuable as a consumer. And historically, the greater Philadelphia area does a disappearing act over the 4th of July weekend. And I'm not saying cancel your vacation plans to
Yeah.
buy a house. What I am saying is if you're around and you see something, take a flyer on it. Don't be
Yeah,
afraid
go
to,
for it.
because there's going to be two people that are going to be asleep at the wheel these next 60 days. One is going to be other consumers, other buyers, because they're thinking about vacation plans and their kids are out of school. And there's all these reasons to delay where they might have been looking in the spring. There's some of those
Mhm.
folks that back off. There's also agents that are going to be asleep at the wheel that aren't.
Or on vacation
Well, they're
or
not telling
something
their
like
clients,
that.
"Hey, rates came down." I mean,
Yeah.
that's you'd be surprised how few consumers actually know that. So there's major opportunity there. And as the rates, if they continue to decline, whether if this has any legs to it, which a lot of people believe so, Lawrence Yun thinks so. If you look at the article here that was posted on Inman, we're going to talk about the Trump administration and how they've been putting heat on the Federal Reserve Chair Powell, Jerome Powell, to lower short-term rates. We'll talk about that here in a second. But when they have that dual mandate of inflation and jobs, and they both have stabilized here, and a lot of economists are predicting we're going to see lower rates in the second half of the year. I was more skeptical than I am now that we're going to see that. If you look at the predictions here, we just went over this. There's a range of predictions from all the major outlets that are there, where Fannie Mae is predicting 6.1 by the end of the year, mortgage bankers 6.6, National Association of Home Builders 6.6, NAR 6.3, Realtor.com 6.2, Wells Fargo 6.3, Housing Wire 6.5. The list goes on. You can see the range here. It's like 6.1 to 6.6 or
Yeah.
6.7. So, I mean, where do you think rates end up? I guess is my first questions are before we talk about what some of the federal the federal government's initiatives they're going to be rolling out.
Yeah, I mean, my hope is for them to be in the low sixes. So like, 6.5 and less would be my perfect ideal, just because I feel like that's usually the sweet spot for a lot of clients.
Mm-hmm.
And the clients that I get under contract, they usually shop around and try to find the lowest rate. A lot of mine have been finding ones that are like 6.5. I had one that found one that was extremely low because they had like an
Mm-hmm.
arm situation. So
Okay. Well,
I think,
that's a little bit of a different
yeah,
product.
but I think a lot of clients are trying to find different unique ways of getting the interest rates low, but ideally I would prefer in the low sixes range.
So I would imagine we're going to see like 6 3/8
Yeah.
best case
I don't think it's going
scenario.
to be high fives
I'd
anytime soon.
6.5 is probably a safe bet. I
Mhm.
mean, I think the prediction on the Knowledge Brokers podcast that we do, the over under was 6.34, and
Yeah.
I went over. So I think it's going to be. That was actually a good line. It looks like if you're a better. I
Mhm.
know we need Ed Parker here to talk about betting lines, but so you talked about folks getting creative. What are some people doing to get these lower rates? Are they doing like a buy down? Are they paying points? What you mentioned an adjustable rate mortgage because there's other options out there besides
Yeah.
just waiting for rates to come down.
Just like all of the above. I mean, with my specific case, I took advantage of being a first time buyer, getting
Mm-hmm.
that program. I have a client that's doing an arm, like a 7-year adjustable arm, and they got like a 5.5% interest rate, or buying down points. So just being creative for the short term with the expectation that long term down the line, you can refinance it.
Well, so you said you took advantage of a first time buyer program. Tell us more.
Yeah, so I was able to qualify for this and pretty much I didn't like you can go different options. So I went the lower interest rate route, or you can choose to get like closing cost assistance
Mm-hmm.
if you need more money at closing. I saved up a lot of money, so I chose the option to go with the lower interest rate. And the only really caveat is I needed a termite inspection, which I was pretty confident that would pass. And that was pretty much it. Yeah.
Awesome. So I
Yeah,
mean, and that's where it's important that you know the programs that are out there because a
exactly.
lot of consumers they think you need 20% down. It's
Yeah.
not the case. You can get in as low as zero down if you're
Hmm.
a veteran,
Yeah.
3% down on a conventional, 3.5% on an FHA with a 6% seller's assist. There are options out there for consumers. So that's where it's important to talk to more than one lender and to shop around and see what's available. So that's really great information there,
And
Zara.
and even, if you do get below 20%, I know a lot of my clients worry about the PMI, but honestly, I just had a client that closed. His PMI is only it adds an extra $7 a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even that,
Don't go to
big of a
Starbucks
difference.
like once a
Yeah,
month.
exactly.
I mean, a large
Pretty
latte there is
much.
like
Yeah.
6.50. I mean, so that's great advice. And especially as these rates continue to come down, doesn't mean you shouldn't shop
Yeah,
because people see low rates, they think everyone's got the same. Well, that's not really the case. And not all lenders are always going to have the lowest rates all the time.
exactly.
Some of
Yeah.
them have different programs that are available. So I love that advice, Zara. I think that's really, really important. Let's talk about the long term here, and then we'll get into what buyers and sellers should be thinking with this tick down in rates. So we've got Operation Shadow Fed. How familiar are you with this?
I don't know much.
So this is incredible.
Sounds like a cool name.
It does, but there's obviously been pressure from the White House and President Trump to get Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell, who he appointed, by the way, everyone forgets this, back at his first term, to lower rates. They said we should have seen a 2.5% rate cut. That's ridiculous. That would have been way too much. But I think a lot of it's negotiating in public is what we're dealing with here. So President Trump has started Operation Shadow Fed, with the news breaking last week that he has identified several candidates for the next Federal Reserve chair. And under this strategy, the president is going to select a new chair well before he can officially name the role, and they communicate any new Fed policies to the market, which will undermine the current Fed chair. What do you think about this?
So he's pretty much trying to get him out of his position.
Well, he can't do that, but he's going to basically appoint somebody that's going to influence all the voting members of the Federal Reserve and be like the acting chair person.
I mean, I can understand the name now. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously if they're able to do what he wants, which is lower the rates, which is not what it seems like Powell's doing, then obviously it's advantageous. So
it could be advantageous. I mean, this is going to happen. I think this is very clearly where this is going. I think there's 100% chance this happens. If you were going to bet on that, it would be all in on it, right? And there's people being considered, which we'll talk about here in a second. What has happened here, in my view, is that the White House came out after the election and the inauguration. They wanted rates to come down. That was a bit. Now they can't control that. The president can't just say lower rates and it happens. However, they have these tariffs, right? Everyone was worried about the tariffs. So it looks like the tariffs are actually bringing in some money right now. So I think there's an upside to that. Some of these policies they've been enacting, they're starting to have some effect. And I think that's why the market's reacted the way it has. We're seeing lower rates. So if they're able to influence the Fed before Jerome Powell steps down, because he's been very hawkish, that could lead to more rate cuts. I think there's 2 predicted this year. Sarah thinks we're only going to see 1. I'm optimistic we're going to see 2, and they'll finish the job in what was promised. What do you think? How many rate cuts do you see the Fed?
I mean, 2 would be nice.
2 would be nice. All right. Well, that's what they promised. So there's I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, or 0 are the options. Or 2 or more, I guess, would be the.
2 is my favorite number, so I'll go 2.
There you go. All right. Must be a big Babe Ruth fan, right? That's totally. Or Derek Jeter, excuse me, not Babe Ruth. He's number 3. So now the main objective is to communicate to the market that significant changes will occur as soon as this person assumes the role of Federal Reserve Chair. And there's a couple different people being considered. Fed Governor Kevin Warsh, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett, current Fed Governor Chris Waller, former World Bank Group President David Malpass, and even the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Chris Waller is one of the people that spoke out. So I think he should be out immediately. I don't think that would be a good appointee. Scott Bessent, he's already doing the Treasury Secretary job. I don't know that you want to remove him, but who really knows with this? I think this is something that they want to see rates come down quicker, and they're trying to influence it as much as they can. And that's what tells me that there is some legs to these lower mortgage rates, because if the Fed's going to actually do this, and they have this shadow Fed operation, that would just be, it would be wild. Now there's something that happened here. I want you to tell me what you think about this, Zara. So Morgan Stanley, after this news came out, they stated that they expect the Fed to deliver 7 rate cuts in 2026, starting in March, which would bring the terminal rate to 2.5 to 2.75%. That sounds very bearish economically. But then if Morgan recognized that the shadow Fed was about to happen, would that be the reality here? I mean, that's a lot of rate cuts. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So normally, I guess on average, how many rate cuts do they usually do a year?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's never it all depends on the economy. So I can't really answer that. I mean, they promised a few last year. They came through on that, finished the job. This year they promised 2. And that's what a lot of people are still expecting.
I mean, I would be shocked if they're able to do 7 rate cuts. That sounds like a lot, but I mean, it would be nice.
I think that's a lot. And I'm surprised Morgan Stanley came out and said that. Yeah. But, I think it speaks to how this is definitely going to happen. And if there is more, someone that's more in line with the White House's view of where rates want to go, rates are going to come down. Mortgage rates will come down, and that as long as obviously the economy responds to that appropriately. So knowing this is on the horizon, you're talking to a buyer right now, and they're saying, well, I'm going to wait for these rates to come down, Zara. What do you tell those folks?
Yeah, well, I would tell them, first and foremost, like, what do you want the rate to come down to?
Okay.
Because I think that's very important. Because obviously if they have, outrageous number like 2 or 3%, then, that changes things. But if they're looking for like the low 6s, I think that this information would be very beneficial towards them.
I agree. Now, I would caution buyers that if they find a house that works, not to wait it out, to hope they find something better, because inventory is still low, especially in the greater Philadelphia area, where at a 2.2 month supply, and there may be more competition for that house. And
the house prices will go up.
The house prices will go up at a faster clip than what they are now. So, who knows how this is all going to shake out, but you might be waiving inspections. You might be doing things you don't feel comfortable doing. Imagine if there's an appraisal gap. It might cost you more money to get into the house by having to put up the delta or the difference between the purchase price and the appraisal. So there's a lot of things to think of there. What about sellers, right? So a seller saying, hey, rates are going to come down. I think prices may come up. And they want to wait and see how the shadow Fed works. What advice would you have for them?
Well, honestly, I feel like it'll just bring more inventory as well into the marketplace, because then they'll be more satisfied to sell their home, because a lot of the sellers, some of them have low interest rates, so they feel more comfortable selling it. But yeah, I would definitely just tell them that, what we're seeing is that there is possibility of more buyers coming into the marketplace, which is going to up their house price even more.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a 13.5% increase in inventory year over year. So
Yeah.
you're right on with inventory, and I don't see that changing. I think we see the slight easing of competition. And what I would, for anyone trying to time the market, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it doesn't
Because
work
you
out.
don't know. I mean, if you would have told me in 2019 we were going to have a global pandemic and the market would be on fire the second half of the year, I would have never believed that.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's what you were waiting for, then maybe it worked out. I mean, I don't think a lot of people predicted that. When you try to time the market, what ends up happening is you kind of outthink yourself, because remember, the magic formula here is, are you going to stay in the home for more than 5 years? Does the house work for you, and can you afford the payment? So you can always renegotiate the rate with a refinance later. And if you already have a place to go and you just want to get out, I mean, there's maintenance costs. Things can go wrong with homes. Have you ever had a seller have a problem with a vacant property or somewhere they weren't living because they were holding on to it for better pricing?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of have that right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see pipes burst in the wintertime.
Yeah.
You see someone's not there maintaining the property. You got insurance costs that go up. So the best advice here is, with all this noise in the market, I'm very optimistic that we'll see transactions jump up higher than what they have in the past 2 years in 2026. And there could be a lot of opportunity the second half of the year. What I would be careful of is trying to outthink the market conditions with all this noise in the market here, knowing what we know locally. I mean, our market's different than other places.
Yeah. Well, I just think everything comes with a cost at the end of the day. So if you want a lower interest rate, you can waive. You can, you're going to have to waive possibly some of your terms. Even people that bought in COVID time that got an amazing rate, you had to, when I first started, you have to like pretty much waive everything and give your arm and leg to get a home, a house. So, but you got an amazing rate, but it came at a cost. So that's just kind of what every buyer has to think about is, do I want a lower rate, but a higher priced house, or, just explore other options.
It's no different than when you hire a contractor and you either pay two ways. Everything comes with the cost, I love that. You pay with your money or you pay with your time. Yeah. Because if you hire a cheap contractor, I guarantee you that job's going to take longer. Your job's going to be disrupted longer. The quality may not be good. You're going to maybe have more expenses, like you said. If you pay with your money up front, you get a more predictable result. And sometimes paying that premium, that has value to your life. I mean, there's folks that get dominated by real estate for years. They're trying to figure out where they're going to move to, what they want to do. And instead of people that make decisive decisions based on getting educated, and your agent should be doing that education up front.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got some exciting stuff happening in the city of brotherly love. A WNBA franchise just got announced earlier this week, coming to Philadelphia in 2030. But first, we're going to talk about the SEPTA shutdown that's coming to a head. City leaders went to Harrisburg this week, and we'll go over what happens next if you're reliant on public transportation, whether it's rail, trolley, bus. We'll explain it all next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB-860 AM. All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB-860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Zara Sala in for Sarah Tymon. And we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. We've got more news around the SEPTA doomsday budget cutting service by 45%. And we'll also be talking about the new WNBA team in the city of brotherly love. The SEPTA shutdown is a little concerning here. So if you get some value out of this, or you like what you hear, maybe not about SEPTA, but you get some value out of what we're talking about, you can subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how these SEPTA changes might impact your real estate plans, you can do that with the link in the comments. So we talked a little bit about this at the break, Zara. SEPTA approved the doomsday budget last week that would cut service by 45%, eliminating Sports Express. And they're asking for action in Harrisburg to provide new funding for transit, because there's a $213 million recurring budget deficit. Wow. Insane that this has gotten to this point. The statement from SEPTA is, beginning with the fall schedule change on August 24th, customers will see the elimination of 32 bus routes and significant reductions in trips on all rail services, including the end of special services like Sports Express. That's like the best train you can get if you're on Broad Street. You don't have to go through all those stops. On September 1, a fare increase averaging 21.5% for all riders will go into effect. The new base fare for bus and metro trips will be $2.90. On January 1st, service cuts will deepen with the elimination of 5 regional rail lines, more bus routes, and the implementation of a 9 p.m. curfew on all remaining rail surfaces. We understand these measures will cause great hardship for our riders and for the city and southeastern region as a whole. SEPTA is still working with state leaders to secure funding that could minimize or reverse some of these cuts. If the state approves funding in the weeks ahead, we may be able to avoid the cuts and maintain current service levels. What do you think about this? Not good.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned this during the break. I am not a fan just because whenever I go into city, I always take the SEPTA just because I don't like driving and parking in the city. It gives me anxiety. And a lot of my clients as well, especially ones that don't want to live in the city, they want to live in the suburbs. They normally take the train. So that's usually where they find a house, is wherever the closest train route is. So I just feel like it definitely limits a lot of options for different various people to get into the city.
You go to other cities, and New York City's obviously got incredible public transportation. Boston has very strong public transportation. Chicago goes in that group. DC, you could put in there. And then there's a big drop off. And Philadelphia is kind of that next tier. I mean, there's obviously, we don't have the same kind of public transportation some of those other cities do. This could cripple the city. I think this is a bad thing in a lot of ways. Just this week, city leaders went to Harrisburg to lobby for some of the money that's needed. I think it's like $300 million, and that was in the budget bill that the Pennsylvania State House passed earlier in June that would put $300 million towards transit, but it didn't pass the Senate. And unfortunately, this is, Republicans control the Senate. Democrats have a 1-seat advantage in the House. So this becomes sort of a partisan issue. And there's folks that represent small rural counties in Pennsylvania. Not everyone's like Philadelphia and the surrounding areas. And they want money for roads and bridges because the roads in Pennsylvania kind of suck. I mean,
just a little bit.
Well, the infrastructure is a problem, and they don't care about mass transit in other parts of the state where their constituents don't live. So it's like a classic political battle here, because I understand why they're fighting for what they're fighting for. And the 9 p.m. curfew on regional rail, like that is brutal. I mean, if you're going, let's say, you live in the suburbs, you want to go down to a game, or you just want to get into the city, 9 o'clock, I mean,
it takes an hour to get into the city.
Well, it depends where you're coming from. But yes, I mean, if you're coming from Chester County, what station do you usually take?
What was that?
What station do you usually get on at?
I usually take like the Downingtown one or the Exton station.
Okay, and it takes just as long to drive as it does to take the rail. So
you're avoiding traffic.
Well, you're avoiding traffic. It's a lot easier. You're not driving, right? You can be productive if you really want to take that route. I live on the main line. I mean, it's still 20 minutes. It'll take me longer in some cases to get downtown, depending on the time of day, than it would taking the train versus getting picked up.
You have to park. Yeah.
Well, you have to park, but then also traffic is a disaster.
I know.
So, that's, and then, if you look at the sports complex, that place is a cluster when it comes to cars. Like I hate driving down there, and taking, the regional rail to the Broad Street line can be, and it's packed, but I mean, any more cars going down there, you're going to be waiting for, hours trying to get out of there. So this is a real problem. And I'm glad to see at least city leaders are being proactive in pushing for the SEPTA funding in the state budget. Governor Josh Shapiro proposed $168 million in additional SEPTA funding from the state, which would offset the bad budget. But this is not good. I mean, how do you think it's actually going to go through? Are they going to cut the rates or not cut the rates? Excuse me. Thinking about the last segment. Are they going to cut the line? Do you think they're going to come to a deal, Zara?
I hope they come to a deal, just because, not only, I think it's definitely going to limit the amount of people that go into the city, because a lot of people like to, I like to eat like at restaurants and eat late and night, have a nice night out. So I feel like it's going to hurt a lot of businesses too in the city as well, because less people are going to want to come just because of, the certain caps and limits.
Yeah, and I mean, they're talking about some of the lines that are going to be eliminated. I mean, if you look at the what's going to be shortened or eliminated, they go through all of this on SEPTA's website, and they talk about the regional rail that would get eliminated. So they're talking about, they have all the routes here now, but the Paoli Thorndale line, all
Yeah.
service would be eliminated. It's gone. And that is like, there are
That's
people that
crazy.
move to the main line, that move to Paoli so they can take the train right into the city.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. Like I have some clients that literally moved there so maybe I should reach out to them if this gets passed because that's going to affect their job.
The Trenton line, gone, right? And then you have these other places like Manayunk, Norristown, no regional rail service after 9. Same thing with the Media Wawa line. I guess that goes out to Wawa headquarters. The Kinwood line, that's like kind of a small commuter line, not far from where we are right now. That's gone. The Chestnut Hill West line, gone, would be eliminated. So I mean, these are places where the Wilmington Newark line, gone. So these are places like people move to these places so they can get into town. So
a reason.
Well, I think this could negatively impact housing around there. I mean,
I agree,
and I mean, whether a lot of people don't like driving into town for all the reasons you talked about, or if they got to get in and out, sometimes it's just a lot easier. It could be good for parking garages.
Yeah,
I think
true.
restaurants would suffer, like you had talked about, because if people aren't coming in for the weekends or doing that sort of stuff, I mean, you're not going to have people spending their money. You might just go somewhere that's a little more convenient for you.
Yeah, more so towards the suburbs area. Yeah, and it's just also just cheaper, instead of having to spend so much gas getting into the city,
Mm-hmm.
you just pay, get a train ticket, train pass.
So the House passed the budget. It still didn't pass the Senate. And I think there's, with the lobbying that's going on, I can't imagine that a deal doesn't get struck here. I think this will be crippling.
Yeah.
And I hope that it gets done. But it's there's other places hoping for state funding too, which I think is something that people don't realize. Pre-K programs in the city. There's things like that. I mean, that's equally important. I mean, child education is obviously important. So, this delayed funding in these budget battles, I do think they'll work it out. And I'm very hopeful they will, because slashing all these regional, I mean, what do you do with those lines? They just sit there. They become useless. Like, I mean, this is a problem with like the infrastructure, and it could, cause people to maybe move out of some of these areas. I mean, you're talking the Paoli Thorndale line. That's like iconic. I mean,
that's a huge line.
It's called the main line for a reason. And getting rid of that could be a real big problem here. So
it's one of the reasons why it's such an expensive area to live in, is because it's so close to Philly. So you're kind of taking a main reason why people move there.
I agree. I mean, some people say I have to live in Philadelphia, or I have to work there.
Yeah.
So I've got to work in Philadelphia. I want to be able to walk to the train or drive to the train. I mean, you go to the Wynwood train station, not far from where I live. That's packed every day.
Yeah.
Same thing with Narberth. I mean, they're building this new Ardmore train station. Well, now they're going to close it down. So that was a colossal waste of money.
Yeah.
And this could negatively impact so many neighborhoods. And I mean, you look at even like Malvern, right? They have that new Malvern train station that was built a few years ago. Well, it's useless now. So what was all that for? And that's the problem here, because people wanted these public rail lines and be able to access the city. So let's hope the politicians do the right thing here.
Yeah, right.
That would be
for everyone's sake.
Well, it'd be nice if politicians just did the right thing normally.
Period.
Let alone in this situation that could negatively impact a lot of people. There's a lot of folks that rely on the bus to get to work.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, that was majority of my clients that I helped move out of the city, that moved into Malvern or, the suburbs area, that wanted less, clutter in their life. So
I hear you. So let's hope this gets worked out. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk about the Philadelphia WNBA franchise. Exciting news for all the sports fans out there. Well, we're going to have a little guessing game at the end of this year about what the new team is going to be called. So we'll be right back on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Zara Sala. Are you related to the former New York Jets coach Robert Saleh?
Probably not. I think he's Egyptian.
I'm just kidding around. That's
but that's my brother's name, Robert Saleh.
Okay, well, I mean, hopefully he's more famous than the fired New York Jets coach.
He's definitely not.
We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're talking about Philadelphia's new WNBA franchise debuting in 2030. There's a lot of things people aren't thinking about when it comes to this, and it's exciting news for the whole region. If you get some value out of this or you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team to talk about what this means for your real estate plans, you can do that with the link in the comments. So Zara is an avid WNBA fan. She actually doesn't like sports, but
well, I got into football like a couple weeks before the Super Bowl, just because
you and everybody else. I mean, that's normal. So
I finally figured out how that works. So.
When your team's in last place and they're losing and you're still watching, that's when you're a sports fan. That's when you're part of.
I mean, our team won, so I got in at the best time.
Different. Anyone who's a real sports fan, I think Mike probably feels the same way. He just watches these losing teams all the time, year after year. So we're in a good time now. Most importantly, WNBA is expanding to 18 teams over the next 5 years, with Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia all set to join the league by 2030. Cleveland will begin playing 28, Detroit 29, Philadelphia in 2030, after Toronto and Portland will enter the league next year. My first question is, how is Philadelphia not one of the first cities to have a WNBA team? I mean, you're talking about smaller places like Portland, Detroit, Cleveland. I mean, what are these other cities that are getting WNBA teams? It always baffles me that Philadelphia is like the 18th franchise instead of like the 5th or the 6th.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big city, so I'm pretty surprised because we have a bunch of different sport teams. I mean, we have 2 football teams, so I would have assumed by now that we would have.
We have 2 football teams,
don't we? The Steelers and
that's Pittsburgh. We're not talking about that. That's the other side of the state.
Pennsylvania, but yeah,
got it. So it doesn't make sense to me. Forget that. But so this is exciting news. I mean, so Josh Harris, the Harris Blitzer Sports Company, will be the owner of the team, and they had to spend $250 million in an expansion fee. They're set to start play in 2030. The new arena for the Sixers and Flyers is going to be opening in 2031. They said they're hoping for 2030, and they're trying to open the new arena with the new team. So that's obviously very exciting. There's a lot of revenue that comes in for this stuff. So there's 150 jobs with the franchise itself, and then another 500 to 700 indirect jobs with arena staff, vendors, and security based on the Las Vegas Aces economic impact. And that could inject anywhere from 20 to 30 million annually into local payrolls, with average arena wages at $40,000 to $60,000 a year. You're going to get more game day spending, 7,000 fans per game. That's the mid-range for a WNBA and NBA game. You got retail, you've got hospitality. What do you think about this, Zara? I mean, I think this is pretty exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would definitely be more excited if it was into basketball, but I feel like for basketball fans, it's something to look forward to for sure.
Well, and the WNBA with Caitlin Clark. So I don't know. You probably
I know that's the only woman.
So that's actually a great example here because she has. Well, I think she's changed the face of the sport, and she's so fun to watch that it's got a lot more attention than it did 10 or 15 years ago. So my question is, this is going to be down at the sports complex. Hopefully there's more events down there. Hopefully SEPTA gets their act together like we talked about.
Yeah.
But this could, boost housing around the area. It's going to bring a lot more money to economic activity.
Yeah, more money into Philly.
Yeah, and that's kind of a dead zone down there unless there's an event going on. So hopefully that'll push along the development that the Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers have all kind of partnered with down there. So, I mean, do you see this as a positive or a negative for homeowners, for commerce, for the economy? What do you think here, Zara?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely going to bring people that aren't even local to Philly into the area, whether it be from different states or different areas of Pennsylvania. Just more money into the city, honestly.
And that's
more camaraderie. Yeah.
Well, and you get travel, right? And another SEPTA station getting upgraded, by the way, is the NRG station down there. It's going to be about $100 million. So hopefully they're not going to cut that, but that's another example of where the infrastructure can come from. You get game day spending. I mean, think about when you go to a Phillies game, how much money you spend just getting concessions
so expensive.
and buying tickets. So there's a lot of good things that can come out of this. And the WNBA's got a 40-game season. They play May to September, when it's usually only the Phillies down at the sports complex. So, and that could, I think that could be a big positive as well. I'm curious about this, Zara. What do you think the new name of the team is going to be?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I may or may not have ChatGPT coupled. I actually really like Liberty Bells is really cute. Philadelphia Sirens. What else? 76er Sisters.
Yeah, that's a ridiculous name.
Yeah, some of these are kind of cute.
The Bells could be a great name.
Yeah, I
just
feel like
the
they
Bells.
should go with the Bells.
It reminds me of like a League of Their Own name. That you'd see something BELLES.
Yes.
I mean, would be a great way to start it. I think that could be really good. The Liberty's already taken by New York.
Is it?
Yeah, so you can't use that. The Bells is a no-brainer. They also had the Philadelphia Rage. You may not remember this team. Dawn Staley, who is the head coach of the University of South Carolina Gamecocks women's team. She, the multiple national championship winner, gold medalist. She went to Temple. She was on the Philadelphia Rage. What a horrible name for a team. It's like they're gonna hurt somebody, but that would be interesting if they brought that back. I like the Bells. I think that would be great.
I like that one too.
I also like this for women athletes being able to go see professional women play because there's nothing else down there. I mean, baseball's awesome. Obviously, football's a lot of fun, but we don't have a professional women's franchise here playing in an arena. I mean, they've got other teams that are around, but I think this is great for young women, for girls that you can go see Caitlin Clark play or someone like that. I mean, I think that's always very exciting as a kid. And seeing women play professional sports on an NBA court or a WNBA court in this case, I think that's awesome for the area and for a lot of the people that are out there.
No, I agree for sure, because I feel like our sports are very male oriented, so it's nice to see, females and.
Well, I got 2 girls at home. Like I have.
You should take them.
Well, I mean, if they want to go see basketball, I'll take them. I mean, I'm probably going to go to a dance competition or something. So the point is, I think it's great all around. I just don't understand how Philadelphia is the last of all these other cities to get a team. Maybe it has something to do with the arena. Who knows? But good news here for Philadelphia. Great stuff. Happy 4th of July, everybody. I tell you where to follow Zara on social media, but she doesn't use social media, so we can't even do that. She's not a ghost. She's a great real estate agent. You can visit her webpage at zara.tomtoole.com, ZAHRA.tomtoole with an E.com. You can follow me on Instagram. It's at TomToole3RD, and we'll be back next week on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.